Welcome to the Fly Fishing Insider Podcast, where each week we speak with brands, icons, innovators, and trailblazers within the fly fishing industry, exploring both the successes and failures they've encountered along the way to become who they are today. But first, if you have not yet subscribed to the podcast or joined our email list, please do so by going to the flyfishinginsiderpodcast.com, or you can also find us on Instagram at Fly Fishing Insider Podcast. Now let's begin. Welcome to the Fly Fishing Insider Podcast. Today our guest is Tana Hoffman, who's the CEO of Mountainist. Mountainist is a women's rental company for gear and apparel and whatnot. So Tana, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you so much for having me on today. This is super exciting.
Yeah, I'm excited you're here as well. So, hopefully that intro covered up pretty much what you do. I know it's a lot more detailed than that, but I reached out to you guys and confirmed that we wanted to do this with you because I love what you're doing. I love the direction of where you're going with this business model and this niche. And, everyone that knows me knows I'm all about niches and stuff. So, but before we jump into Mountainist as a whole, tell me a bit about yourself, because you seem, from what I've seen, through pictures and Instagram and talking to other people and whatnot, you seem like a really outdoorsy kind of person. So tell us how you got into fly fishing and all that fun stuff.
Yeah, thank you. Well, it's kind of funny because, I was invited to be on this fly fishing podcast, and I've been invited on a few other fly fishing specific media outlets. And I always kind of wonder, am I a good enough angler to be featured on these? Because I consider myself kind of a mediocre angler at best. I only got into fly fishing about 4 years ago. I was introduced when I moved out to Wyoming and started dating a guy, actually, that was into fly fishing. But before that, my experience with fishing was I grew up in New Hampshire. So it was really kind of trolling, deep sea fishing and trolling behind boats. Mm-hmm. So I really only got into it about 4 years ago. And it was, a pretty quick lesson on here's how you get into it. And by the way, we're going to the river this weekend. And I caught the biggest fish of the trip on a nymph. And quite honestly, I was hooked right from that moment. Like right when I got started, I just had a really, really good experience. And so, living out in Wyoming, I've had a lot of opportunities to be out on the water. And also, as you said, I do a lot of other outdoor sports, but this is just one of those areas where there's so much public land and there's so many different activities available to you. Fishing was just kind of a natural evolution. I knew I was going to get into it eventually. But that was, really the reason that I wanted to add fly fishing was because I had such a great experience and it made me want to get into the sport. And so, as you said, I've had this rental company. I started with a lot of other sports, but that was the reason that I added fly fishing because I just wanted to create an easy way for other women to have a great experience.
Absolutely. And you have done that and definitely it shows. So, it's funny. You said you caught the biggest fish on a nymph. Isn't it funny how the smallest fly always catches the biggest fish? You live in Wyoming. Like what other sports are you interested in? Because I know your business model also pertains to other outdoor activities as well.
Yeah. So when I moved to Wyoming, I moved here from Colorado. I had been moving around from mountain town to mountain town for the past 10 years, mostly working at ski resorts and for production companies that specialized in winter sports. I worked for Ketone Gravity Research, a ski company, if you're familiar with it, ski media company, and they do a bunch of other adventure sports. But I started working with them, and it was because I loved backcountry skiing, and I was also into downhill mountain biking. And then my experience living in Wyoming and before that Colorado, I got introduced to snowmobiles. So that was really the main sport that I did as soon as I moved out here. I bought a snowmobile and found some really good friends that were willing to take me out on a powder day and kind of transitioned my backcountry experience from skiing and snowboarding and human-powered sports to the motorized side. So, that was really how I started Mountainist. As you mentioned, if you look at the site, it's mostly power sports. But I also, do biking and I also fish and I also hunt. So I've been trying to bring some more of those sports into the mix, because you don't see the two sides together very often, the power sports and human powered sports. But those are the activities that a lot of my friends out here do. And so I really wanted to create a company that could bring the two of those together and, just kind of make this brand around the love of backcountry sports.
Absolutely, for sure. It's cool. I really like how you brought and mixed the two, because you've encountered everything, right? You brought everything together. What I want to ask you is, walk us through like why you started this. Like what made you so inspired to sit there and go, you know what, like there's a niche here, or there's a need or a niche. Like walk us through. Yeah,
I think that it came together, kind of a bunch of different things came together for this concept to really take root. The first piece of it was, again, I was working for this outdoor media company, and I was doing all of their marketing and their social media and managing their community. And we had a few pieces that really were focused on women in the outdoors, and those did so well. And then I also had all of these women that were responding to our social media posts or reaching out to us on direct message saying, this is so cool. I love this. I wish that I could do this. And I think that was where this idea for creating a media company or a brand around women in the outdoors and just being a supportive resource really kind of started to take shape, because I realized that there was this need that a lot of nonprofits are out there, helping women get outdoors and helping women get into these sports. But there aren't too many major, for-profit, either online retailers or online media outlets that are really dedicated to helping women get off the sidelines. So that was where the idea started. And then through that, just kind of marinating on that, I refer to myself as a serial recreationist. And what I mean by that is I moved to Wyoming. I was kind of a one, maybe a two-trick pony. There were two sports that I really liked to do. And then I got here and it was like, oh, but I can try this and I can try this and I can try this. Yeah. And I spent thousands of dollars in gear. I'm sure that most people in mountain towns can, this resonates with them when I say that all of my wealth is in my garage.
Yeah.
It's just all of my toys and all of my gear. And so I kind of became the go-to person for a lot of my friends out here. I mean, I had mentors myself, but then I became the mentor to a lot of my friends who wanted to try snowmobiling or try dirt biking or try fly fishing, because I had all of this extra gear. And so, trying to figure out how do I make this media company work and how do I build this into a profitable business model, I kind of had a little bit of, I guess you could say that was my aha moment of, well, what is really holding women back? If they say they want to go, most women will, seek out help and go and do it, but not if they have to spend $2,000 just to try it out. And really, with snowmobiling specifically, it's really, really high-end gear if you want to do it right and if you want to have a good experience and not be out there in old gear or somebody else's gear or something that doesn't fit or something that doesn't make you feel confident. So that was where the rental side started. And then since then, with this relaunch, it's kind of come full circle to be able to be that content resource, that media resource that I really dreamt up in the first place, and bringing in all of these other sports.
You mentioned a relaunch and whatnot, but we're going to get into that in a second. And here's where I want to go with this now, is you brought your two loves, and your two skills together, and you saw the need and you fulfilled that need. So you said you have a media side, and then you also have the gear rental side. Talk about the media side of things.
The media side of things is really just something that I love to do personally. I've been in production. I've always worked in the outdoor industry, but I've always been doing content. I've always been doing marketing. I've always been doing video production. And so that's something that I just personally have fun doing. And, if this is what I want to be when I grow up, I better have fun doing it every day. So the writing side and the creative side is just a piece that I've always wanted to add into this. And I also really believe that aside from specific campaigns, for example, Orvis does a fantastic job with the 50-50 on the water campaign. But there aren't tons of outlets on there where women can go and really resonate with the people that are on the websites or the people that are in the videos. And so it was important for me not just to be able to, make this gear available, but also to be an outlet and a voice and, just a place where women could go and see themselves participating in these sports and see people that look like them, And also just women, learn in a different way. So I think that it's important to be able to have a site that isn't saying, most of what you see on here is for men, but here's our section for women. I want to flip it around and I want to say, this is mostly a community for women. It's also for the men that adventure with us, and helping to, give men ideas of how best to coach if they are in fact trying to teach a significant other. But, I think that it's really important to have a space that is just for women, not to have them as a side note, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Completely does. So another thing you mentioned was that you were a mentor to many of you later became a mentor to many women. What is it that you mentor?
I would just call it a mountain mentor. It's the idea of everybody needs a cheerleader sometimes, myself included. And I would say that that's kind of what I built Mountainist to be. If you were really going to narrow it down, Mountainist is meant to be kind of a digital mentor to the women that are already strong and independent and say, I want to get into this. We're not trying to convince anyone. But there's a lot of women out there that say, I would love to get into this. I just honestly don't know where to start and I don't know what I need. So to be able to offer this kind of overarching mentorship of, we know you have what it takes and we're just going to help you get started. I think that that's something that this landscape is missing in a lot of ways. People are very lucky to have individual mentors. I think that for a lot of my customers, if you were to ask them, what's their dream scenario, it's that they would meet someone that said, oh, you want to learn how to fly fish? Come on, let's go. But that doesn't happen for everybody. So I think that, with everything the internet makes available, and, with people just looking more and more online for answers and for inspiration, I think that we have an amazing opportunity to kind of create this mentorship opportunity in an accessible digital form.
Tana, I gotta say, you're making my job very easy today on this podcast, which is great. which is great. And you're just so inspiring. Like my head is just like, I'm like gonna try and ask a question. You've answered it, and which is great because you've answered it authentically, and it's just so awesome to hear your positive, positive vision and positive views. Like, and you're so passionate about this subject. Now, does everyone share the same passion as you? Like, does your team or your tribe, like, is there a team and tribe? Like, walk me through that. Like, tell us, like, who all is involved? Is it just you, or is it a one-man show? Like, who's behind all this motivation?
Yeah, well, first off, thank you very much. This is easy for me to talk about because it's literally all I think about. So I would say the passion is 100% there. As far as my team, it's a fairly small team. It's really myself and a handful of contractors. I have someone that helps me with video, someone that helps me with photos. So I have a content side. And then I have a few other women that help me to pick out the gear because for everything that we have on the retail side, we've kind of pre-tested it. We've already asked 20 women what is their favorite waders or what are their favorite boots. So we kind of have, we're testing it for our community. It's community endorsed. So I have women helping with that. And then our team basically is just a bunch of women that really love to do these sports and also share those values of wanting to be able to grow the sport and bring more women into it and just find a new way to talk about these sports, and just find a new way to present them so that it's not always about, the biggest fish or, traveling or all of the things that rightly so, glorified in the industry. It's a dream to be able to, catch, 24-inch trout every day and go to Belize and go, saltwater fly fishing and everything. But it's also okay, and it can also be a great experience if you're just going out with your family or fishing a little bit while you're camping and, you're just catching the little guys. So we really just want to paint a picture about, it's about the experience as a whole and how it makes you feel and, how you can connect with nature and connect with the outdoors and mountains. And so I think that that's really how this team has come together. I haven't been seeking out people to work with me. It's the other way around. It's women that come in and say, how do I get involved with this? Like, I really like what you're doing and I haven't seen it before and I want to help. So I think that's what makes this brand so incredible is it literally is this community of women that are saying, I want to do this too. Like, I also want to be a mentor, put me to work.
Yeah,
and that's also how we found most of our partners. Yeah.
I
Sorry,
could
go ahead.
see I could see that. I mean, just listening to you, like, like I want to help you. You're just you have that
You are.
effect, right? No, and I realize we are. I mean, but it's just like I want to go deeper than that. Like, I want to help you because you're doing so good. You guys are just doing so much good for women out there and whatnot. So, is there? I gotta ask you, with all the good, has there ever been any pushback, or had it ever been any? I don't want to say bad because that's not the word I want to. Ever been industry pushback or challenges that you might have faced from that you could share that you've overcome?
I don't know about pushback. I would say there are a couple things that I'm careful with, which is, just how I talk about women in these sports. I think that, in some sports, especially on the power sports side of things, the female demographic tends to be sometimes overly sexualized. And I think that it's hard finding a balance between, how do we create something for women that's empowering and not, expletive. So
Yeah.
I think that's difficult, but really the challenge for me has been, when I'm trying to speak to maybe a potential investor or something like that, most people just don't think women do these sports, which I always respond with, especially in fly fishing. Women are the only growing demographic in the sport right now, at least through the reports that I've read. And in a lot of these other sports, women aren't necessarily represented in the reports because they're buying used snowmobiles or because they're buying used dirt bikes. So in my mind, there's a lot more women out there. And I know this because I talk to them and I hear from them and I follow them. But I think that that's been a challenge, is convincing some of the people that are outside the industry that there's actually a growing demographic of women that want to get into these, what some might call extreme sports, and that there's a lot of passion for it. So I think that that's been the hardest thing, just showing that, yes, there's a market big enough just to do it for women.
There's a huge market in it. And if a retailer or a manufacturer doesn't see that, then they're leaving money on the table at the end of the day. There's a huge market in it. And like you said with fly fishing, like, it is one of the fastest growing segment within fly fishing is the women demographic. The manufacturers and the brands, they've all turned to recognizing that, and they've supported that. And that's why you see, like, women's waders that are just as the technical functions are there as parallel as the men's, because women demand just as much as us, right? And I think it's great.
Exactly.
Like you guys you're on
And I
it.
think that that's true in fishing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's true in fishing a lot more than in some of the other industries. I think fishing has really stepped up to the plate in terms of providing more women's gear and marketing to women, and realizing that there's a growing demand for things.
Mm-hmm.
I think in some of these other sports, there's sometimes still a little bit of a lag, or on the other hand, the manufacturers are creating the gear, but then, sometimes we'll go into dealerships and they have, one model in one colorway of the women's because they just don't think that it's going to sell, and it becomes the self-fulfilling prophecy. If you don't have options for women, they're not going to buy things.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So
No, it's fun. It's funny. There's
so I think that
yeah.
we want to.
Tana, it's funny that you mentioned earlier in the show that you rely on these women for product testing, if you will. And I think that's so important to point that out as well. As, I mean, like, you got your core people, your product testing gear, so therefore you're sitting there going pass fail. Like, walk us through that. Like, obviously, you have a high standard of what you guys rent out to women or sell, you know what I mean, in some cases. So how do you go about selecting which gear's right? And, like, why is there not everyone using a pink fly rod?
Well, for starters, it's this whole idea began because I had friends in the industry that were willing to take a chance on me, and get me some inventory that I could rent out. So that was, kind of the first few brands were because I knew people who worked at those companies personally, and I love their stuff and I wear their stuff. So that kind of set the standard for, okay, what do I love and what would I want to be lending out to my friends? So that became kind of the first standard, of course. But now I think it's interesting because when I start to ask people, what is their favorite gear for very specific things, a lot of times I have women come back and say, well, this men's model is the only thing that worked for me in this particular scenario. And so we'll put that on the site and we'll photograph it on a female model and we'll talk about why it's good for women. So I think that makes it also really interesting. We're looking at things not just because they're expensive or not just because they're made to be women specific, not just things that are written in the product description, but we're doing it because I've heard more than one woman say that, this particular model fits me because I'm big chested, or it fits well, I just love the way because I'm a little bit shorter, and so it works for me. So we're really looking at how it makes women feel and the scenarios that they want to use them in, as opposed to what it was quote unquote designed for.
Yeah, love it. I absolutely love it all. So you guys you're definitely on the mark with that. So let's shift. Let's talk about what you got going forward. You've built up a great business, and I know there's lots more to come. So what have you guys got coming down the pipe for us?
Well, as I mentioned, we just relaunched, and so now our site is a marketplace, so it has gear for sale. It also has the gear rental kits, the packages that we offer so that women can start renting. But really, this year, we're focused on just increasing the amount of content. We've brought in a lot of pros and experts and just seasoned athletes to help ask the basic questions that a lot of beginners are wondering, or a lot of women specifically are wondering, or men who are, hoping to get their significant others into these sports. So we really just want to continue to grow as a destination and a resource for not only women who want to get into these, but women who are continuing to progress in all of these different sports and kind of become a central hub for women in the mountains. We've partnered with a lot of different events and clinics and coaches. And so, I think that's really our goal, is to continue to build this into a community where women can come to find answers, but also, find riding partners and find women to, go out and, meet up with in real life and go fish with. And I think especially now with the pandemic, as social distancing has become such an important factor of our daily lifestyle, all of these sports are inherently socially distanced. And I think that there may be more interest for people to kind of explore their backyards and get out into public lands now that a lot of the activities that they maybe are used to doing on their time off aren't as accessible. So, I just want to continue to, like I said, grow as a resource and become a hub for any women that are, looking to get out into the mountains.
You mentioned you partnered with some organizations and coaches and stuff like that. I don't want to put you on the spot too badly, but what are some of the organizations you partnered with, and why did you choose those organizations?
So it's mostly small grassroots coaches and clinics and events. It really started with the snowmobile and dirt bike side of things, because really that was a distribution model when we first launched for our rentals. Because if there's an event, these events require participants to show up with at least the basic safety gear. And so, if you're already paying $300 to go to a backcountry clinic or $500 to go to a backcountry snowmobile clinic, and you don't have the required gear, that might be another $1,500 on top of that. And then maybe you're renting a sled, and all of a sudden it becomes completely out of your budget. So, a few of these are local people that live here and do clinics out of Wyoming. That's where I'm based. And then reaching out to other women-specific clinics. For example, there's a dirt bike clinic that hosts, over 500 women every summer for a big weekend dirt bike festival. And a lot of those women need gear. So that's really where we started, was people that could help get the word out about our rentals. But it's really great because now that we've partnered with them, it just further helps to expand our community and show that, the women in these sports really are creating a united front and really want to see the sport grow. And
you mentioned that you have that opportunity for women to connect with other women. Walk us through that. Like, how do they connect to this? Is there like a community, a Facebook community? Like, how would it, if there's a woman in the audience listening right now going, hey, I'm really interested and I want to connect with another woman and go fly fishing or dirt biking or whatever it is, how would they connect? How would they go about using your platform to do so?
We don't have a specific connection feature yet, but that is certainly something that we would like to offer down the road. As of right now, we do have a Facebook group called the Mountainist Collective, and it's a pretty small group, just a few hundred, but it's been pretty cool to see the women on there connecting and making plans to go ride or getting recommendations for, public access areas when they go on trips. So it's been kind of brewing there for a while. I would love to be able to add a formal connection to our platform at some point, but it's not something we have just yet, but it's something we're certainly working on.
Also, when you mentioned Tana, I want to ask, how would a woman go on there and walk us through the process? Like, how would you go on and rent your gear? Like, how do you know the sizing or something like that? Say we look at snowmobile gear. How do they know what size? Say they've never snowmobiled before. Is there suggestions? Like, how do you take care of that and make sure that someone's not, am I a medium? Am I a small? Like,
let's go with fly fish. Right now, we only have a few options on there for fly fishing. But for example, if somebody was, first of all, if they're interested, do I need waders? They'd be able to find, articles and FAQs kind of all over the rental page that explain, what you need. We also have a TV series called Mountainist TV, and there are several videos on there that are titled "How to Get Geared Up For." And it'll show you if you're going dirt biking, here's kind of the minimal gear that you need. Here's how it layers on together. We have one for fly fishing as well. What do I wear under my waders? So we start with the outerwear. That's always the one that is easiest for a customer to pick out their own size, because we photograph every piece of outerwear that we sell on multiple different models with their measurements. So rather than having to guess, what size you are, you can see other women that are kind of maybe similar to your height and weight, so that it gives you a really good idea of which outerwear to start with. And then we actually follow up with the customer and help them get fitted for things like helmets and boots, because all of the brands end up being just a little bit different. And we really don't want somebody to have a bad experience where they just, fill everything out in a form and then it shows up and the boots don't fit because they ended up having to get larger waders. And so the booties are larger. And so they should have gone 2 sizes up on their boots. So we work with our customers one-on-one just to make sure it's going to be the best fit possible, because we really just want them to not have to worry about the gear. We want it to show up in these beautiful boxes. They unpackage everything. It comes in duffel bags so that they can conveniently put it in their cars or transfer it wherever it needs to go. And then they can watch videos on how they're supposed to put everything on and how everything is supposed to work together. So we try to make it as easy for everyone as possible and try to make it very much a personalized experience.
So when you say it shows up, like I'm up here in Canada, does it just show up here at my front door?
It shows up right at your front door.
How do I get it back to Wyoming?
The boxes that we use, they are self-closing. What I mean by that is you don't get a box that has the 4 panels, and then when you box it back up, you have to go and get your shipping tape and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. They are folded with tabs, so all you need is one sticker that we include in the box to reseal it, and it comes with your return labels in it. So all you have to do is just drop it off at UPS on your return date, and it shows back up here. And then we clean it, and we put it back in the inventory.
Wow, how easy is that?
Yeah, we try to make it really easy, and we have a lot of people actually who have it sent out to the lodges. Fly fishing stuff obviously packs up a little bit smaller, but for snowmobiling, if you have big bulky boots and you have helmets and you have Abby bags and all of that, it can start to take up a lot of room. So we can actually send it right to the lodge so that, they can show up at their destination and it's all at the hotel, and then the hotel can ship it back to us when they're done.
So I guess it would save on airfare as well, or like carry-on luggage or luggage, like transport fees from that person as well. I mean, it's probably cheaper just to use your model than use airlines.
Yeah, in some cases it is, for sure. Because, for example, if you go skiing, you can rent the skis and the boots and all the other stuff, but it's a little bit more difficult to rent outerwear. And going out in jeans and a windbreaker, as you see sometimes, doesn't always create the best experience. Or, women out there in a pair of leggings and they're cold and they're wet from sitting in the snow. And so we're really just, again, our main goal with our rentals is we just want people to have the most amazing first experience. So that they're not cold, they're not uncomfortable, and they feel good in their pictures, and they feel like they're having a really authentic experience, so that they can say, that was really fun, I want to go again. Because I think so many times People get out for the first experience, maybe a little bit unprepared, and they don't have a good time, and that doesn't encourage them to want to go out and learn to do it. So that's what we're really trying to help women avoid, is just bad first experiences.
Crazy. Tana, what's some advice you have for women that are that are new or thinking about getting into the sports, any of the sports that your brand represents?
I mean, I think that I would always try to suggest to someone or recommend to them that if they know anybody that is, doing these sports, it really doesn't hurt to ask that person, just if they can, come over and either look at the machine or look at the equipment, or ask them about, where's a good place to start off, or would you mind if I tag along one time? And I understand that not everybody has those in your network, but if you're not able to do that, I think the second best thing is to look around for a beginner's clinic or an intro class. There are actually a lot more, I think, than people are aware of. You just have to Google a little bit harder. But there are so many clinics for women in downhill biking and for snowmobiling, and a lot of rides and a lot of clubs actually too. There's a lot of local clubs do women specific snowmobiling or dirt biking or even fishing. I've seen some local clubs. So I think that just getting out there and trying to find people around you that like to do the same things, you have to be okay with being a beginner. That takes confidence to be the person who doesn't know, and feeling like you're showing up, with behind the ears with what I consider, or what some people consider to be the stupid questions. People say there aren't any, but you don't want to, be seen as somebody who doesn't know what they're doing. I know that was always a really big struggle for me. I'm a pretty proud person. And I, hated going out with a group and not knowing what people were talking about. And instead of asking like I should have, I'd just kind of stay quiet. So I think that would also be big advice is, when you have the opportunity to learn, you have to ask for help sometimes, not because, somebody else doesn't want to, but, I just think it's really important to try to soak up as much information as you can.
Great advice. Definitely great advice. Fast forward 5 years, where do you see the company? Where do you see the brand? What would you like to see?
Oh man, 5 years is a long time.
I know you can accomplish a lot in 5 years.
You can accomplish a lot. I think that I would love to see our range of sports grow. I would start including, more sports than we have, so that we can really fully encompass all of these different adventure sports. Maybe bringing in, some backpacking stuff, or I grew up surfing. It's not exactly the mountains, but, I think that what's cool about our name Mountainist is, and we refer to our community members as Mountainists. Mm-hmm. I think that it can also be looked at as, it's not just about mountain sports, but it's about, ascending your own mountains, whatever those may be, and overcoming challenges. So I think it would be really cool to just start adding in more sports. So it could be, instead of women for X sport, it's like women for the outdoors, and really start to build a collective community, because that's how you start to learn other sports. If you're all biking together every single day, it takes someone to be like, hey, by the way, I also know how to fly fish. Do you guys want to go and do that? So I think it's, creating this community mentorship network where, you get into it for one reason, but then you learn something completely different because you meet somebody that you have a lot in common with. So I think that, you asked earlier, what do we have on our site that a woman can go on and meet someone else to actually go out and find an adventure partner? That's what I would see in 5 years, is that we would be kind of this ultimate connector of women in the outdoors, whether that's trying to find mentors or just adventure partners, or, just people that inspire you.
Definitely. I definitely know you're going to be able to do that one. So, you are a inspiration to myself as well as many other women out there. So, before I let you go, do you have any final words?
No, just to say thank you so much for having me on, and this has been really fun.
Yeah, no worries. It's been great as well. So, Tana, where can people find you at?
So you can find us at mountainist.com is our main website. We can find all of our rentals and all of our articles and all of our videos and content. And then on Instagram, we are at Mountainist. We are also at Mountainist on Facebook. So /Mountainist, pretty much all the way around. So that's where people can find us.
I'm going to make sure I put all those details within our show notes. And Tana, I want to thank you, and listeners, I want to thank you guys as well.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I really appreciate it.
No worries. Thanks. You've been listening to the Fly Fishing Insider podcast. If you like this podcast episode, please let us know. Leave a review and subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast listening platform.